And that's us. Evening, folks. Hope you're all well, and thanks very much for coming in. You're all welcome. Thanks to coming to Paranormal Histories interview with Above Paranormal. So thanks very much for coming in,
You're
Brett.
well.
Hope you're well, and you just tell us a wee bit about yourself.
Right. I've been doing the Above Paranormal channel since 2018. I created it, I think, but I didn't really do much on the channel until the start of 2019. I've actually been interested in the paranormal, believe it or not, for about 40 years now. I was 11 when I first got into the paranormal. I'm not a ghost hunting channel. I am basically a paranormal channel. I'm interested in ghosts, Bigfoot, aliens, elementals, you name it. If it's paranormal, I'll cover it if people want to hear about it. Like I said, I've been doing the channel about 2 years now. Recently just got membership status on YouTube. The channel's got nearly 1,100 subs now, which ain't too bad. I tend to do my main live streams on Fridays. Sundays I do card readings for people because I've been reading. Quiet. Sorry. I've been doing card readings for about 30 years now, reading the tarot and stuff like that. So I just do that as kind of give back for people on the channel who come in there regularly. But that's basically what I do. Like I say, I am a full paranormal channel, not just a ghost hunting channel.
So it's all quite varied.
Yeah, very much so. I'm a big believer in Bigfoot and aliens, and I do have some very interesting chats with guests on the channel who maybe not quite such a big believer in
it. Just say hi, Andy, Brett, Nicole, Ron's here as well. Who else have we got tonight? I hope I'm saying this right. Wisteria, Elemental Witch. Thanks very much for coming in.
Yeah, that's Claire. She's a regular off my channel.
Right. But sometimes I get the name wrong, and you try to pronounce the name, you can get it mixed up a bit. So, what first got you interested in the whole paranormal?
Right, this is quite an interesting story actually. When I was 11, I had an 8-month issue with a poltergeist. I was living with my parents at the time, obviously, and I started to have things happen in the bedroom on a night when I was asleep or when I was in the bedroom getting ready to sleep. Started off with just like books falling over or things falling off shelves, stuff like that. It ramped up. One night I was sitting reading in bed and I'd got a cupboard in the corner, and I started to hear this noise, and when I looked, the cupboard was literally vibrating that fast, it was buzzing. Gradually ramped up to the point where it actually trapped me behind the wardrobe at one point, which was quite scary, and then it culminated at the end where it actually materialized and I saw it. One and only time I have ever seen a full body apparition. I woke up one morning and it was, and I know this is going to sound ridiculous, it was basically hovering about 2 foot above me, and he was staring. It was a man. He was staring down at me. I would say he was dressed in 30s style clothing. He looked a bit. He was a workman. I don't know why, but I got the impression he was a miner, and he was just hovering above me. He didn't look evil or nothing like that. He got no real expression on his face whatsoever. He was just neutral, looking at me. And all of a sudden, he lunged down at me from the ceiling. And as he came down, I jumped up because I was lying in bed. And when our faces were about an inch apart, he just disappeared. 1 second he was there, and 1 second he was gone. And that was basically what got me into the paranormal, was a poltergeist.
So you quite how you put it, a big introduction then to the. I know a lot of people.
I used to spend many a night sleeping on the landing as a child because of what was going on there. My parents were just putting it down to imagination and reading all wrong sort of books and stuff. But eventually, my dad suddenly announced one day that he was moving me out the bedroom and putting me in another one. My dad he's an ex-Catholic. He was brought up in a very, very strict Catholic family, but he was excommunicated when he married my mother because she's Church of England, and he was excommunicated because they got married in a Church of England church. But even though he says he doesn't believe in it, he's still got very strong Catholic beliefs. But I am still convinced to this day that my dad actually saw something in that room at the end, and that was why he agreed to move me out. He's never discussed it, and he never will discuss it, because that's the type of bloke he is. But one day he just suddenly announced I was being moved into another bedroom. So
maybe saw something.
I'm convinced to this day that he actually witnessed something in there for himself. Because, you know, I begged and begged for 8 months to be moved out that room, and he was just, oh, stop being stupid, it's just your imagination. And then suddenly one day he announced I was being moved, and I was moved that day. Everything was took out the bedroom, and I was stuck in another one. So there you go. That was my introduction to the paranormal.
Hey, Exploring Stranger Things. Hope you're a good guys. Thanks very much for coming in.
Hi, everybody in chat. I can't answer you because I'm on StreamYards and there's no option to reply to chat.
You're all very, very welcome. So, as you said, Brett, you know, you've quite a varied field. You know, you do basically everything. Have you got a sort of favourite, you know, aspect? Is there something you like doing more than the rest, or is it all just kind of level?
I like all the paranormal, you know, interdimensional stuff and everything. At the moment, I go through phases of different areas of the paranormal that I get really interested in. At the moment, I'm doing a lot of research on Bigfoot, Sasquatch, and particularly the Yowie in Australia. So that's my big subject at the moment. I'm watching a lot of the Australian stuff on the reports of the Yowies and things like that. It's quite an interesting subject, actually. It's amazing how you know, you've got the skunk ape in Florida, Sasquatch tends to be Canada, over on the west coast in northern California, and that way up into British Columbia, they tend to call it Bigfoot, and then obviously the Australians refer to their Yowie, but they're all very, very similar in what they describe.
Every country tends, I think every country tends to have a different name for it.
Say again?
I think every country tends to have a different kind of name for it.
For what?
For, you know, like Bigfoot, Yeti, you know, stuff like that.
They all have the regional names. Oddly enough, Russia has got about 5 separate names for the ones they've got, depending on which region of, you know, the old USSR you go to. But there's quite a famous story in there. There's a mountain called the Mountain of the Dead, and there was a load of students went missing on a camping trip up there, and there's been all sorts of rumours rushing around on that one, on whether there was alien involvement, whether it was the government was doing. Apparently, they were testing rockets in the area at the time, and some people claim it was rockets. But interestingly, they have a journal of one of the students, and the last entry in the journal actually states, "Now we know the snowman is real," and this is why they think it was Yeti, because they'd ripped the tent open and from the inside to look out, and they've also got a photograph that they claim is the snowman. But everybody in the expedition was killed. One of the girls from the expedition, when they found her, she'd actually had a tongue ripped out. It was, you know, a tongue had gone. And the rumours by the local Russian people there was that this Yeti traps and kills deer, but it only eats the soft parts of the body. So there's all sorts of rumours, you know, around that one.
Just say hi to Shan and Lee. Thanks for thanks for coming in. I hope you're well. You're very, very welcome. So your paranormal investigations, have you got a favourite spot?
Yeah, that's a really easy one. Up here in Rotherham, where I live, just north of us in Barnsley, is a place called Wombwell Woods. Quite a famous area for paranormal activity. It's well known for spirit lights. There's a very interesting story of there's supposedly or rumoured to be a spirit in there that actually knocks people out when they encounter it. The other good thing about the place is, well, I say good thing, it's good from a paranormal thing, it's not good from other sides. There was a very, very famous suicide that occurred in the woods where a man had murdered his wife and he fled to the woods and he basically went there to kill himself. First tried to gas himself in the car and that failed. So he clambered under his car and let the jack down and tried to crush himself, and that failed. Right. So in the end, he got an electric drill out of his car and he basically drilled himself to death in the woods with an electric drill. It's quite a gory. It's a true story. You know, you can check it. It's all reported in the newspapers. But it was quite a grisly suicide. There's been a number of suicides in that wood. It's a bit like our version of the Japanese suicide wood. You know, there's a lot of local people have gone there to end their lives and stuff. But it's a fascinating place. There's also a bridge there called Convicts Bridge. There is rumoured to have a ghost train come through it. And there is also another famous suicide connected with that bridge as well, of a young man in his 30s. But it's an amazing place, absolutely amazing place.
Do you think there's a particular reason why it's attracts so many people want to commit suicide, or
That is a really interesting question, because all around that area it's quite rural anyway, and there's loads of places they can go, but they tend to go there for some reason. But Wombwell, it's a massive wood, but on a night it's a very, very eerie place to be. There's no lighting or nothing. If you don't go in there with lighting, you'd get lost in there, because it literally is pitch black if you go deep enough into the woods. But I think people just go there because they know there's previous successful suicides gone on there, so they're probably presuming, I can go there and not be disturbed to do it, sort of thing. But there's been a number of suicides gone on there. That one I've just described is the most grisliest one. There's also something that happened years back during the mining times, where there was a problem with a runaway mining cart, and there was a number of children killed there. So that, that's another thing that's linked to the woods. But if you go on YouTube and type in Wombwell Woods, you'll find a fair number of paranormal channels have covered the area, because like I say, but the only thing I haven't seen the only two things I personally haven't encountered in the wood at the moment is the spirit lights and the actual spirit that is rumoured to knock people out. There is also one there that apparently is described as looking like Guy Fawkes as well, so I wouldn't mind encountering him as well, because I'm presuming he's going right back in history. So that would be a fascinating one to encounter. We did a lot of spirit box sessions while we were there. There's a little pond pool type thing in the middle of the wood, and the video's actually on my channel at Wombwell Woods, and we actually spoke to a couple of people there via the spirit box who claimed that their lives had ended in the pond. So I'm planning on going back there shortly. Oddly enough, with Claire and Leah, who are on the channel now. Because I'd like to do an all-night session in the woods.
I was going to ask. That was going to be my next question. Are you planning on returning?
Yeah. I want to go, and I want to do an all-night session in there. There's some really, really eerie type constructions that appear in the wood as well. Like a lot of wooden teepee, very, very Blair Witch type things appear in the woods. Whether it's the locals just playing around or what, but you can find quite a few of them scattered throughout the woods, and they're just really, really strange constructions, all made out of just like branches and leaves and stuff. But nobody's admitted to building them at the moment. I know there's a few people who do wild camping in there, but these things are just tiny little. Well, I say tiny. They're about 6 foot high, some of them, but they're only like a few feet wide. Very, very strange constructions appear in that wood. So
would you recommend it for wild camping?
I would, yeah. Yeah, but you know, be prepared to see things in there because, like I say, the spirit lights are really well known in the area. You know, huge glowing orbs appearing in the woods. It's also all sorts of, you know, throughout the year. But like I say, personally myself, I ain't ever encountered one yet. But that's why I want to do an all night to see if you can. The other interesting thing to note about the place is there are power lines that run straight through the centre of it. So you know, there's high EMF fields in the wood anyway. So very interesting place to be.
Have you ever done an investigation and you know after you thought I'm never going back there again? You know something's happened, you've heard something or you know whatever. You thought, oh no, never again.
Oddly enough, no. But there is places I would never go to. I only live about 40 minutes drive from East Drive in Pontefract. And I've always said that is one place I've never had any real interest in going to. I think the place is overrated, and personally, I don't think it's haunted. But that's just a personal opinion.
You don't think it's haunted?
No, I don't think East Drive is haunted at all. There's certainly no Black Monk connected to it because if you go back to the original story of the Pritchards, who had the original encounter there in the 80s, I believe it was, Joe Pritchard claimed he was shot in the coal shed and a black mass. He said a black mass appeared in the coal shed with him, which is fair enough. I can accept that. But at no point did any of the Pritchard family ever state it was a black monk. It was only ever described as a black mass. And it's only been, believe it or not, paranormal teams going there have converted this black mass into a black monk, you know, sort of thing. Personally, I do think it was a poltergeist connected to one of the kids. And I think when the family moved out, it finished there. Because there's hundreds and hundreds of East Drive videos on YouTube. And if you sit and watch them critically, 99.9% of them have had no real evidence on them. After the place has been caught knocking on walls and throwing marbles and stuff, she's actually been caught doing it. And it's interesting. It's very interesting to note if you watch a lot of videos where she's actually there at the start. There's a lot of marbles and things thrown around. As soon as that woman leaves the house, everything stops. So now that's going to be a bit controversial for your channel, but personally, I don't believe East Drive is haunted.
Hey, Chapel, thanks so much for coming in. Hey, Eddie. Did Eddie appear there? Oh, there he's up there. Hey, Eddie. Thanks very much for coming in, buddy. I've watched a couple of documentaries on YouTube about that East Drive. I remember seeing that woman, but there was also a man. He's meant to be some kind of tour guide or something. He's connected because they were interviewing him as well.
Yeah, there's a guy from Manchester. I think his channel is called Curiosity, and he goes around. He does a lot of he does all sorts of documentaries, but he does a lot of paranormal ones, and he goes to these places that are supposedly, you know, highly active. He has been to East Drive twice, and both times he has come away with the opinion that nothing's going on. You know, he's sat up all night long and not had a single thing occur. So you know, he's done it twice, but he is known for being very skeptical, but very fair in what he does. You know, he won't say it ain't haunted if he is something, he will admit to it. But both times he's been to East Drive, he's had nothing happen apart from one of the files he did of an interview with the woman next door vanished off his computer. But you know, that could be put down to technical error. That is the only paranormally type thing that happened, and he's of the opinion the place ain't haunted. You know, he did a very down to earth documentary of it.
All right.
I think it's better if someone, you know, as you say, this guy investigates paranormal, but he's also a bit of a skeptic. I think it's better for somebody like that to investigate a place, you know, instead of somebody who is just solely focused on the paranormal and they're just going to say right away, you know, right, that's paranormal. you know,
the problem a lot of paranormal channels have got, and everybody's guilty of it up to some point, is no matter where you go as a paranormal channel, you are expecting paranormal things to happen. Mm-hmm. So even things that, you know, somebody who didn't believe in the paranormal would put down to a rational explanation, a lot of paranormal channels will immediately jump to a paranormal explanation. Now, I always say you should start your investigation and narrow and eliminate all the normal things it could be. Once you've done that, and only after you've done that, should you actually start looking at the paranormal explanations for it, because it's amazing the amount of people who go into woods on a night, they hear a twig snap, or they may hear a strange animal noise, and straight away it's a demon. You know, they forget the fact they're in a wood with probably 300 badgers, 1,000 foxes, God knows how many squirrels, and, you know, all sorts of British wildlife. Barn owls in particular, you know, if they start screaming, they can sound like all sorts of eerie and strange things. I always say to people, especially new people who come into the paranormal field and do investigations, the first thing you want to do before you brush up on your paranormal is brush up on your British wildlife, because you need to know what sort of noises you're going to encounter when you're out and about, particularly if you're in an area with deer, because they make all sorts of weird and scary noises at night, grunts and growls and all sorts of things. And, you know, you find out it's a bloody red deer somewhere in the tree. You know, but I would always say to a channel, brush up on your wildlife before you get into your paranormal, because 99% of the time, if you're out in a wood, it's probably going to be wildlife.
Exactly, I totally agree with you, Brett. And, you know, as you say, you need to look at all the what it could be, you know, and know what you think of. A few weeks ago now, we've done quite a bit in Edinburgh. We took quite a few photographs. We took one photograph, and just looking at it, it was in Greyfriars, I believe, and it was right beside the church wall, and it looked like. Sorry, Sarah?
It was Greyfriars.
It was Greyfriars. Just looking at the actual photograph, it looked like the best way I can describe as a wizard, you know. But we put it on a group that we're in, and this guy, you know, the guy was brilliant. Guy was brand new. He took the photo and he done all sorts of it, and he came back to says, no, it was a plant pot.
Yeah, but pareidolia is a really interesting thing, because you've got oral pareidolia where people hear things, and then you've got visual pareidolia where they see things. What is really interesting is a university actually did a study recently. They published the results recently. I think it was about 5 months ago. And they stated that they discovered that people who believe in the paranormal are significantly more likely to suffer from pareidolia than people who don't. So we're already keyed as you know, as paranormal fanatics. We're already mentally keyed to suffer from pareidolia, because everybody does it. Looks at a picture of a tree and sees a face and stuff like that. You know, everybody's guilty of it. It's just having the common sense and being grounded enough to think, you know, is it just a pattern in the tree before claiming there's a demon staring at you out of the trunk, sort of thing, you know.
Exactly. And if you go on a location, you say, you know, if you're solely focused on the paranormal before you go into the location, I mean, I'm not an expert by any means, you know, I'll tell you if I'm an expert, but I'm certainly far from it. If you get in a location and you're totally focused on the paranormal, you're in that mindset that you're going to see something.
Yeah.
No, your mind's already telling you.
That's exactly what it is. You're already conditioned to expect to see something. You know, and this is what I'll say on the thing you've just said. That I always say there are no experts in the paranormal, because none of it that we're looking into is proven at the moment. So nobody can be an expert on something that isn't proven. You can have people who are knowledgeable on the subject, but if anybody claims they're an expert, they're talking out their backside. There are no paranormal experts. You know, there are just knowledgeable people in various areas of the paranormal.
I mean, I've been into paranormal for 25 plus years, Hi, Beat. Thanks for coming, and Dolby's here as well. Hi, Ton. Hope you're well. I've been out of paranormal for like 25, between 25 and 30 years, something like that. Quite a while anyway. And I read stuff that I never knew before, and and as I say to you earlier on about getting guests on, and because it's amazing the amount you can learn just by talking to other people.
Yeah, but like I say, I've been reading up and following the paranormal for 39 years now, and I can guarantee every stream I do on my channel, I learn something new off somebody on there. It's one of those subjects you'll never ever stop learning about. But you'll find the people who do their research into what they're doing will actually be a lot more grounded and a lot more well informed when they do their investigations, rather than the people who run around looking for demons all the while.
I mean, everybody's, all paranormal investigators have got a location. For instance, take Greyfriars, and they're all psyched up for it, and we're all hoping that we catch something. Find something.
Funnily enough, Greyfriars and the Edinburgh Dungeons are the two places in Scotland I'd like to go and visit at some point.
Greyfriars is amazing. There's Claire saying, I'm an expert at hugging trees.
That's what I was laughing at. The comment was just put up.
Greyfriars, Brett, as we've been at Greyfriars, I've lost count the amount of times I've been, and it never ever loses its appeal.
Yeah, I'd love to go. Funnily enough, believe it or not, I have never ever done an investigation in a graveyard yet.
Never.
Not a single graveyard, and we plan to do a series of 3 down here because there's 3 graveyards in Rotherham and Sheffield that I want to go and visit. So we plan to go and visit them, and then COVID broke out, so that put a stop to everything. So, we have got it in the pipeline where we're going to do a trinity of the 3 graveyards that I want to visit, based solely on the fact that we've never investigated a graveyard before. Never done one.
Well, if you're ever up Edinburgh way, I recommend Greyfriars definitely. And
I'd love to Greyfriars, and I'd love to go and visit the Edinburgh Dungeons as well, because I think, what goes on in the dungeons goes way back in history, way back. And that,
Sarah and I, we done the tour of the vaults. Okay, 2 years ago now. Somewhere like we done the Blair Street, because there's 2 sets. There's Midry Street and Blair Street. We done the Blair Street vaults, and it was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating.
Oh, I didn't like it.
You don't like it?
No, the first room we went in, right? No, this is no word of a lie. Scott will tell you. The first room we went in, I was sweating buckets, right? I was dripping. I was soaking. I was absolutely, it was horrendous.
Yeah.
And then see the minute we walked into the next room, bang, I was bone dry. It was a total weird experience.
That is one of the things you'll probably notice the more investigations you do, that you do start getting sensitive to certain areas. And I think I do believe it's because people who expose themselves to it all the while start to, subconsciously pick up when they're in an area where it's going to happen. And I do believe that.
When we went to the vaults, this was like 2 or 3 years ago, so it was before I'd even got into the paranormal.
Yeah.
Because beforehand, Scott was like really into it, and he would tell me bits and stuff, but I'm like, it's not really my thing until recently. But back then, I wasn't into it at all. But it was just that one room was just it was weird.
Yeah, but they're the best sort of people. If they've got no experience of paranormal and then they suddenly start experiencing something, they're actually the best people to talk to, because they've got no bias at the time on what they're seeing and experiencing. So you'd have been a perfect subject at that time, to interview and find out what you felt in there, because we all get tinged by our experiences in the end. It's something you can't help doing.
It was weird. Even to this day, I still can't explain how I was absolutely soaking in one room, and then there like literally 2 steps in front of me, and I was bone dry. Never again.
There are places I've been to where I've walked in, and I've been in there a few minutes, and I thought, I ain't stopping here. There's just an atmosphere about the place I just cannot cope with. And oddly enough, years ago when I was getting married, we actually went to, because I'm originally from the Midlands, we went to a place in Lye called Aidan Hill House that has since appeared on Most Haunted, believe it or not. And we walked in there because we were going to have our wedding reception there. And I walked in to pay the deposit on it. I was in there 2 minutes, walked out, and we never paid the deposit on it because I couldn't cope with it. There was just a really, really strange atmosphere in the place. So I left. So that answer to your question, there is the one place I would never go back to again, was Aidan Hill House in the Midlands.
Never try it again.
There's just something about that house I cannot cope with. From the second I walk through the door, just cannot cope with it.
See, I've only had that feeling once since when we went to I love Edinburgh. Quantum Generator. Hi there. Who's that? Comprehend kind of communications occurring. I love Edinburgh, and you know, it doesn't matter how many times you go to Edinburgh, it's always the same kind of feeling. And I think it's just there's so much history attached to Edinburgh. You know, back on, and a lot of it, I say 80% of it is sort of brutal history. But I've been all over the sort of, you know, the 70s and the only one place where I got a bad feeling was when we went to Canongate Kirk one night, and there was a right heavy, oppressive feeling, and it kind of stuck with me.
That was exactly what I felt in Aidan Hill House, and I just couldn't cope with the place. And we actually had our wedding reception elsewhere. I literally refused to have the wedding reception there. I couldn't have coped with being in there all night long. There was just something horrible about the place. Something really horrible.
Have you ever felt a place? Is there a particular spot that you've ever felt drawn to? You know, just one particular location that you've always felt a draw to?
There is one place I have always said that is on my bucket list, and that is Stonehenge. And I've been to Wiltshire many times for dog shows, and only been 20 miles away from Stonehenge and never got to go there. But I have always had this feeling that at some point in my life I need to go there, and I have absolutely no idea why. Absolutely, it could be, you know, because there's no real ghost connection with Stonehenge, but I don't know what it is. There's just something about Stonehenge that I feel the need. At some point in my life, I've got to go there and see it.
What's your view? I mean, there's been a lot of talk on Facebook above you about Pendle Hill, and I know a lot of people have different opinions in Pendle Hill. Some believe it is haunted, some believe it's just, you know, legend and just.
Pendle Hill itself, I think the situation was created by a very intelligent and spiteful young girl who got issues with her family and her neighbours. I don't believe that they were actually, you know, what was it, Mother Demdike? Was it Mother Demdike?
Elizabeth Demdike.
Yeah, I think she was more of an herbalist. I think she was like a local wife type thing. I don't believe, and I've been told this by a number of people. You know, I've got friends who actually live very close to Pendle Hill. The hill itself isn't very active. It's actually the surrounding areas where you need to go to, like the jail where they kept them while the trials were going on. So Pendle Hill itself, I'd like to go and because it's not far from me. It's on the other side of the Pennines. I think it's about an hour and a half away from here. I'd like to go and visit the hill just to say I've been there, but I would actually rather, if I'm going to do the investigations, is do the investigations in the areas surrounding the hill, because a lot of the story where, you know, the energy would have been generated to create things like hauntings didn't actually occur on the hill itself. It occurred in the surrounding areas like the jail and stuff like that.
I was going to say that the hill itself, you know, as you say, it's not really where one of the events took place. It is a kind of, you know, as you said, the jail and what have you. I know Elizabeth Demdike, she never actually stood trial. She died in prison.
Yeah,
before.
Well, what is interesting to note, they now believe that the little girl, I can't remember, was it Alice? I can't remember her name, or Janet, something like that. whatever her name was anyway, she was herself was actually tried about 20 years after it all
She
died
was,
down
aye.
for witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Aye.
so it's quite an interesting story. I honestly believe the original thing that kicked it all off was the guy had a stroke. You know, because the descriptions from the time are classic stroke symptoms, and obviously in that day and age, they had no idea what a stroke was. But I think she had got an issue with her family, and a major issue. And I think when they all got arrested, and she got taken, and she went under the wing of the prosecutor, I think she started to enjoy all the attention she was getting.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, aye.
And I think she just threw accusations left, right, and centre just to keep herself in the spotlight. Because apparently at one point she jumped up on the table in the court and practically gave a sermon to the court. She was a very intelligent girl, considering she came from a very uneducated family. There's no doubt she was smart, but I don't think there was any witches on Pendle. I think Demdike was basically just the local herb woman, but she'd got an issue with the family, and that was why she called them all out. And then it snowballed. It snowballed with the attention she was getting off people.
I think the issue was because both families were into herbal stuff and selling it and what have you, and I think the issue was just simply competition.
Yeah.
And one family saw this as another way to get rid of the competition, and that's what happened basically.
Yeah, and as it did with the Salem witch trials, basically it was just a way to get rid of your neighbours or anybody who pissed you off at the time.
Mm-hmm.
You just basically said they're a witch, and it was believed. And let's be honest, the tests they used to put people through, they were a win-win situation for the witch hunters, because the people could survive in one way or the other. Because if they if they died, they were considered innocent, and if they survived it proved they were a witch, and they were either burned or hanged anyway. So it was a no-win situation for whoever was accused.
As soon as the finger was pointed at you, you were doomed, basically.
It was a death sentence. It basically was a death sentence, and people used it. They used it to gain possession of land. They used it to gain money, or they basically did it. It was like the very first Facebook, where people character assassinate each other on Facebook. That was what the witch trials were. They were basically the very first social media type thing.
And they were quite right throughout, England and Scotland. Just Matthew Hopkins, a witchfinder general. I think a bigger, another part of the problem was that these people that done the questioning, like say Matthew Hopkins, they saw this as a way, the more witches that they caught and executed, the higher their status became in the eyes of Parliament or the King or whoever it was in charge.
There were a bunch of zealots as well, so it was a deadly combination. It really was. But what a lot of people don't realise is that they think that witches were traditionally burnt at the stake. Over here in England, the majority of your witches were hanged. It was only in America that they burned them at the stake. It was the punishment over here was hanging.
I know Edinburgh. There was a few witches burned in Edinburgh down the bottom of Esplanade. The castle was where the witches' well is just now to remember them basically, and a lot of them have been pardoned, for want of a better word. We found out they were all actually innocent. My family were executed. Really, Claire?
Yeah. Well, it's like the Pendle Hill witches. They were pardoned in the end. There's actually a statue at Pendle Hill of Agnes Nutter at the car park where you pull up before you go onto the hill. They've actually put a statue there to commemorate it now. Same with this. They've got a memorial garden in Salem where there's a stone for every one of the victims of that. It was a brutal time in history. It really was.
I might be getting my stories mixed up, but was one of, I know Alice Nutter's buried in New Haven. I think it is. Was it New Haven she's buried in? Her family came and got her, and I'm sure I might have been name, but I think in the same cemetery there's a witch who's buried upside down.
Well, that, funnily enough, that was actually one of the things that they used to do to stop them coming back, because they believed the devil would resurrect them unless they were buried head first for some strange reason. There was all sorts of weird and wonderful customs at the time they employed to either detect witchcraft or or prevent it once it had happened from recurring again. But yeah, that it was quite common, believe it or not, to bury witches. They'd either bury them upside down, or they would bury them at crossroads and stuff like that, in unmarked graves and stuff. Kitty J in Cornwall's a famous example of that.
Was the burying them at crossroads, was that not to do, and as I say, I'm not an expert on it, but was that not to do with something that they believed that it would confuse their spirit as to which way to go?
Yeah, that is one of the beliefs, but there's oddly enough, there's also an alternate thing that they didn't realise at the time, that one of the beliefs of people who practice what I'd call negative magic, what most people like to refer to as black magic, is the best place to conduct a ceremony to summon the devil is actually at a crossroads.
All right. I remember reading it was to mix the spirit up.
Yeah.
Brett's available for tours at Pendle. If he's got enough chocolate, that is. He's quite a chocolate freak, is Brett.
Oh, that's all right. I'll pay him in Galaxy. But like I say, I would like to go and visit Pendle Hill just to see, the cottages. Well, where I don't think they're still there. I ain't sure, but I think they're basically ruins now. But I would like to go and see them. But I'd like to go and if I was going to investigate all that thing, I'd go to Lancashire Jail, because that's where apparently most of the activity is supposed to occur anyway. Mm-hmm. The hill itself is fairly inactive, from what I've led to believe from local teams who live close to it.
We were, before everything, before the current situation started, shall we say, we planned a trip down to Wales. We're friendly with a group based down in Chepstow. Yeah. So we were going down there for 3 or 4 days, investigations and what have you. And we were going to stop off at Pendle, on the way down.
Yeah.
But that's still in the pipeline, but obviously we need to wait and see.
With what all that's going on at the moment, it's really put the cap on paranormal investigation at the moment. And I think with what's coming again now, I think it's going to be, with women for a long, long wait before we're going to have the freedom to go out and do things like we did last year.
But that's it. You just don't know. You don't know if it's going to be, months, years. Changes all the time.
It's definitely going to carry on into 2021. I think it'll probably be the back end of 2021 before the paranormal community gets back to where it was in 2019.
See, we started right at the wrong time, because we started a group up and then bang.
Yeah, well, it was the same with us with those cemetery videos we'd got planned. We'd literally got them all mapped out, ready to go, and then they dropped the lockdown on us. So it put a stop to all of it. There was obviously some teams still going out there and defying the but there was big backlashes on YouTube over it. So and I weren't going to do it. There was just there was too much. And the thing, you can stay at home and do these types of streams until it's all over and done with. Just because you can't get out there, it doesn't stop doing discussions on various paranormal subjects anyway.
Well, we've done 2 private investigations in here. Yeah.
See, the thing is, the paranormal community is split into 2 groups. You've got paranormal investigators, what I call the paranormal investigators, and then you've got the paranormal entertainers. Now, your paranormal entertainers do get a lot more subs and views, basically because of what they do. They cater to people who like the jump scares and stuff. Mm-hmm. You'll find your paranormal investigators will have smaller channels, but they'll be a lot more accurate and, more believable in what's going on. Paranormal investigators, us lot, we've actually been lucky because we can carry on talking about it like this. the paranormal entertainers have been struggling a bit because they can't go out to these big name places and do all the drama and stuff that they normally surround themselves with. So we're actually in a better position at the moment to smaller channels rather than the big paranormal entertainment channels, because they're struggling at the moment to put content out to keep their type of viewers entertained, sort of thing.
Well, we've done two. Seriously, we've done two in here. First one was about three weeks ago, something like that. And we'd been on a private stream just chatting, and it was Sarah's idea to do it. And we used a laser grid on that back wall that you can see, and we got quite a good capture. But obviously, we were only saying, well, that's definitely paranormal. What have you?
The best piece of paranormal evidence I've ever encountered, believe it or not, was with a laser pen, and we didn't get it on camera because we were literally in the middle of setting up, and we were at a place called Roach Abbey, which is in Maltby, not far from here. The abbey itself is actually associated with the so-called Robin Hood character. It is rumoured he used to take his masses there, and I'd actually just set up the laser pen, and it was projecting onto the wall of the abbey, and you know how you get all your little green dots in a line? Yeah. Well, they're generated by shining the laser through a tiny perforated piece of metal. So basically, it's just like shining a torch through a colander. As I was setting up the camera, one of the little green squares on the left-hand side of the grid flared really brightly and moved in an arc right the way over to the other side of the laser grid. Now, technically, those dots shouldn't be able to move because they're just projected through a piece of metal with a load of holes in it. And we actually had one dot, and it literally streaked like a comet from one side of the laser pen grid to the other. And because I was just setting up the camera, I didn't actually catch it on film, but that should have been physically impossible to occur because it was only one dot, and it flared, and then it flew from one side of the grid to the other. And that is my biggest regret that I never caught that on camera.
I'd say that's the thing, you know. Sometimes you're lucky enough to catch it, sometimes you're not. You know, it was,
we were actually setting up for the last scene of the video we were doing, so I missed it.
It was actually Sarah that noticed the one we got, and then she managed to slow it right down and what have you. And we had that was on the Sunday. On the Monday night, we had Danny Moss on from the Haunted Hunts UK, and we showed him it, so he kind of backed it up that there was no way, because with the webcam as well, you can see Sarah, and then with the locked off camera right behind Sarah. So we were over the moon, you know. And then we done one the following weekend with the cat balls, as I call them.
Yeah, the ones that light up when they vibrate.
Yep.
Yeah. The flashy balls.
I had one out at the front door that went off, and I'm on camera, so you can see I'm nowhere near it. And then just at that white door behind you, we had them sitting on top of a case, and Sarah and I were sitting where Sarah's sitting, and they were getting off as well. And we done one in the bedroom where Am went off. So, you know, we're not saying we're brilliant investigators, but it is quite good if you get a wee capture and you manage to catch it on camera. You know, you get a wee kind of.
Yeah, but what you've got to bear in mind, Scott, is because nothing is proven in this field, it doesn't matter how many years or how many studies you do on the paranormal. Somebody, a complete newcomer, could come into this field tomorrow, experience something, and prove everything to be true. You know,
exactly.
You know, so all you're going to get from length of time is experience with things going on. You know, but just because you're a newbie doesn't mean that you're not going to get something that could blow everybody else out of the water.
No, that is very true. You get somebody come out, you know, you say tomorrow, and bang, they get something, and you know, everything's proved or disproved, you know, whatever way it goes. I think that's a question for you, Brett.
Oddly enough, Andy, believe it or not, I moved out about 8 months ago from an house that was having some really strange activity in there. For the last 8 months, we have had absolutely nothing occur in this house until 2 weeks ago. And myself and another person have actually at independent times both seen shadow figures in the same area. And neither of us was aware the other one had seen it until one of us mentioned it, which I thought was quite fascinating. So it's only been the last 2 weeks we've actually had something occurring here. And then last week I had my phone, which I always keep here on front of me in the desk. Actually, I went to pick it up and it weren't there, and I found it at the top of the stairs on the floor. So I've had my phone moved as well. But my partner is convinced, because I had an heart attack at the end of March and I was off the channel for about 3 months. And it's only been the last 3 weeks that I've started the channel up again properly with regular streams. And he's convinced that basically because I've started doing all the paranormal stuff again, it's triggered it in this house now. So, there's your theory of maybe it follows us around.
Really?
Hey, Lorna, just so you're saying there, Brett, you something moved to top of your phone moved to the top of the stairs. That actually happened to me in my old flat. I used to live myself, and I was a creature of habit. And every night, when I turned the TV off, I'd put the remote at the front of the TV.
Yeah,
and I'd done it religiously.
Exactly the same.
And one day I went to turn the TV on, the remote wasn't there.
Yeah.
And I lived myself, so it's not if somebody else had moved it. And I found it underneath my bed. I had a double bed. I found it halfway underneath the bed in the room.
Well, years ago, when I first got with the mother of my son, I lived in a flat in the Midlands. And I went out to work the one day and she went up to her mother's. And when we came home, every single remote control in the house was in the bathroom sink for some strange reason. And she refused she would never come in my flat again after that. She refused point blank to come in the flat. We actually went to work, and when I got back, every single remote control in the house was in the bathroom sink for some really odd reason.
It's a strange place to put.
Yeah. Every single, I've got my TV, the video, the DVD player. I've got a remote for the actual alarm in the house. I've got a with a thing, and even my spare car alarm key. They were all in the bathroom sink. Every single alarm remote control thing in the house was in the bathroom sink, and that was nearly 30 years ago that happened. And it freaked her out that much. She refused to stay in the flat. She wouldn't stay in there.
There is no way. I had another experience in that flat. Again, I'm a creature habit. My front door keys, I would put the key in the door, even if I was home for 10 minutes. I'd put the key in the door and turn it.
Yeah.
And after I'd locked it, it was a thing my dad used to do, and kind of, ingrained in my memory, turn it a wee quarter turn to the left. You see, always said.
Believe it or not, I'll still do that with my front door. I'll still do it now.
I used to do it. As I say, even if I was in the house for 10 minutes and I was going back out, I still locked the door. Yeah. One night I locked the door, usual key, and then got up in the morning to go to work, and the keys weren't in the door.
Yeah.
And I found them on the coffee table in the living room.
Yeah.
And I just could not explain, because I was myself, and I was telling people in work, and they were thinking, you must have put them there. I said, I know myself, because I do it religiously every day. Yeah. And the keys were lying on the coffee table in the living room, and it's totally bizarre.
The weirdest thing I've had happen to me recently, and it was last year, and everybody on my channel still takes the mick out of me for it. I was doing a coffee in the old house, and it's only been about 6 months ago, just before I moved, and I'd put my coffee into my cup, and I put the sugar in, put the water in, and I went to the fridge to get the milk out. Got the milk, came back, tipped the milk in the coffee and stirred it up. And when I stirred it up, I thought, oh, there's something wrong with this coffee. There was bits of coffee floating on top. So I stirred it again vigorously, trying to get them to dissolve. Took a swig out of it. And when I took a swig, there wasn't only coffee in my cup, there was gravy powder in there as well. And it had happened between something had put gravy in my coffee. So when I took a swig, I'd literally got half a cup of coffee and half a cup of gravy mixed together. But what was really weird, 2 days before, my partner had been in the kitchen doing tea, and the tub of gravy granules had actually flipped over and rolled across the counter towards him. Right, 6 feet across the work surface towards him. And then 2 days later, I nearly got poisoned with a gravy drink. Freaky, you know, and even now they take the mickey out of me on my channel. You know, you had a cup of gravy today. But it was funny, but it was extremely freaky.
I think the weirdest thing with us now is all the smoke alarms keep going off. No apparent reason. We've checked the battery. It's the battery thing, and they're also wired into the mains. And it's the new fancy ones where it's, instead of clicking the actual smoke alarm to turn it off, there's a wee box thing in the wall that resets it.
Yeah.
And random times, it happened the first time about 4 days ago, Scott, when we were just leaving the house. They went off. And then the other night, they went off about 4 times. And then earlier on today, when Scott was at the shop, and it was just me and a wee girl that was in, and they randomly went off. Yeah. No reason.
See, I am of the opinion is once you start getting into the paranormal and you start looking into the paranormal, I am convinced the paranormal starts looking at you. I'm convinced of that. You know, I think, you know, because you go into these places and because you're showing an interest, you could possibly be having them coming to visit you to see what you're doing, sort of thing. I think it's a two-way.
Happened on a live.
Yeah.
I haven't done, I think it was Friday night or something, sorry, but it happened in one of our lives as well.
Thursday night.
Yeah, I was actually doing a live at the old house one night, and I actually had an orb appear in the hall, and it flashed that bright. I honestly thought somebody had got an arc welder in the hall. It was bright blue, and it lit up the entire hallway as I was doing the stream. And then a friend of mine, Sam, who I do a lot of work with, had exactly the same thing appear on her stream a couple of weeks later. It was really, really strange, that was. But I actually saw it appear, and it was about the size of a large grapefruit, and it was bright electric blue, and it flashed and then disappeared, but it lit my entire hallway up. It was that bright. And then 2 weeks later, Sam had exactly the same thing appear in her living room while she was in the middle of a live stream. Really, really freaky.
Of course, we had that in our old house, and our boiler set on fire. The street was evacuated. I hope everybody was okay, Claire. But it's as I say, if you were to tell, as I say, I told people about what happened in my flat, and they just looked at me if I had 3 heads or something, you know.
What is really funny is with a lot of things like that, where things start moving around, keys are one of the most common, and I don't know whether it's something to do with the fact that they're metal or whatever it is, because a lot of things that you find get moved in houses tend to be made of metal, and keys is one of the most common to have move all over the place, because that was one of the things that started happening with me when I was 11, and I started having the poltergeist things. I actually had on 3 separate occasions a key appear in the air above my head and land and hit me on top of the head. 3 times I had that happen, and they weren't keys that were, you know, from the out. They just appeared. They didn't fit anything, but they, you know, I never saw them appear. They just suddenly hit me on top of the head, and I'd pick it up off the floor. But that was towards the start of when I had the poltergeist when I was 11. That was one of the things that happened, and it was keys. 3 separate occasions I had that happen where I was hit on top of the head with a key. But none of those keys were actually out part of the house. They weren't house keys. I don't know where they came from. So they all look like front door keys, but they were all random. None of them fitted any of the locks in the house.
Claire was saying her old lady died. Sorry, it's a shame she died in the house, died from the cold. Actually, she had no heating. That's a shame. But so for anybody gets starting out in the paranormal, you get a lot of young ones these days. You know, as I've said before in other lives, you know, they have a few beers on a Friday night and they're watching a horror movie, and they think, you know, well, there's a cemetery nearby. You know, let's go for a walk and start shouting at ghosts. What would you kind of, if somebody was serious, you know, starting out, you know, I know after a few beers, what's the kind of best piece of advice you'd give them?
No matter how much equipment you ever buy, the best piece of equipment you will ever take to an investigation with you will be your body. Because you've got to rely on your own senses, and that they will override any single piece of equipment you've got. If there's something there, you will feel it either feel it, see it, smell it, taste it, whatever. The best piece of equipment you can take with you on an investigation would be your body. As to other things, personally, I don't believe in angels and demons, not in the Christian sense. I don't believe any of these things where they go and, I've been scratched by a demon, blah, blah, blah. I don't believe in them. I believe there is positive and negative entities out there that you'll encounter, but I don't believe that, they are angels and demons in the Christian sense. I would say to a new person is be very, very careful what you ask for or wish for, because there is a tendency that at some point something out there will grant the wish, and you may get involved in an encounter that you probably wouldn't want to.
So what about these people? I've never used would you just clear use your intuition. I totally agree. The best instrument you've got is your own senses.
Yeah.
Best thing you can use your own senses. You see, you got these gadgets, but they don't have emotions or feelings or anything. So you know yourself if something's not right, or hi, Frankie.
I've got a K2 meter and I've got a REM bear. There is absolutely no proof that ghosts affect them in any way. But me personally, I have had some good results with them. So for me, they make good indicators. But you get these people; they'll spend thousands on equipment and then totally ignore their own senses when they go anywhere. And I always say, go with your own feelings before you rely on equipment. Don't get too reliant on technology, because your body is the best thing you can take into any investigation.
Exactly. And then with technology, you've got outside influences. Like I say, the meters. We were in not in the actual close, we were in just the entrance to Mary King's Close a few weeks ago. Yeah. We done a wee short video and our meter was climbing, but you're standing there and there's lights all along, so you've got power cables everywhere. Yeah. You're in.
So I always say to people is when you get to an investigation, when we go anywhere, I spend at least 20 to 30 minutes just walking around everywhere with the K2 meter first to see if we're picking things up. Because even if you're out in the middle of a field in the middle of nowhere, there is a very good chance there are underground power cables or something somewhere in the area. And you'll be getting a lot of false positives, and you've only got to walk into the area where the cables are, and they are generating enough EMF to trigger the meter. So always go around with either a K2 or a tri-field meter everywhere you're going to go before you even start, and check that there's nowhere where a K2 is triggering straight away anyway. Because 9 times out of 10 you've found an electrical source rather than a paranormal one.
Exactly. I'll just get back to the Edinburgh Vaults. I've watched quite a few ghost shows in the Edinburgh Vaults, so they've taken their equipment in and their meters are going off and what have you. I think the Edinburgh Vaults is, you just see that the Edinburgh Vaults is situated in Blair Street, right? It's right in the middle of Edinburgh, basically. Yeah. So you get loads of underground cables there.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying the vaults aren't haunted. There's certainly something down there. There is Mr. Boots, and then you've got the wee girl, and you've got the bride as well, and the cobbler. So there's quite a few spirits kicking about, if I want a better word. But just what you're saying, the underlying power cables, I think, as far as the vaults are concerned, that does set a lot of meters up. And then
you can find it even in rural areas. You'll be surprised how many underground cables there are in rural areas that supply farms and things like that. So you've always got to be aware of your surroundings. Do your preliminary checks before you even start doing any investigation. You need to know if there's anything in the area that is going to trigger things like your K2.
Which is, as we were saying earlier on about these, the paranormal investigators that are just, really, really psyched up and keen. I've no disrespect to them in any way. I feel that it's something they might forget about.
Yeah.
You know, when they go on investigation, they could be maybe say in a field, and you know the meters are going nuts, but they don't react because let's face it, these power cables are everywhere. You know,
They're everywhere. Absolutely. You know, you've got Virgin Mobile and all the internet cables and everything now. They're all passing electrical currents through them. So you know, everywhere you go now, you're going to experience EMF fields in various strengths.
yeah. And that's why your own senses. I mean, you know, power cables, etc., don't have no effect on your own senses.
No, the only place I think the only place you've got to be really aware when you may start having your senses affected is if you're really near to electricity pylons, because it has been proven that they generate IEMF fields, and EMF fields have really strange effects on the human brain, including hallucination. And this is why, you know, if you're doing an investigation close to a pylon, there is always that chance that you could be seeing something that ain't really there because the EMF is affecting your brain patterns. You know, you just like it was like I said at the beginning, rule out the normal before you even start considering the paranormal.
Exactly. So
I sound like I'm skeptic, don't I?
No, not at all, Brett. I think it's, you know, as we were saying earlier, you need to have that kind of. I mean, I'm a true believer in the paranormal, so I'll sound a bit maybe hypocrite, but you need to have an open mind.
Yeah.
You know,
you've got to understand the fact that the paranormal is called the paranormal for a reason, because it doesn't happen very often. If you, it's like when I say these people who go out and do these investigations and they've got something happening every few minutes in their videos. If things are happening that often in your video, that is no longer paranormal, that is normal. You know, and that is what will tell you that is not genuine paranormal activity they're getting, because it's called paranormal for a reason. You could go on 100 investigations and get nothing.
Exactly. I've seen many a YouTube video, and as soon as they enter the, you know, the church graveyard, whatever, their meters go off and they hear noises and they see shadows, and it continues non-stop, or it's quite frequent. You think, and you're sitting there watching it, and you're thinking, you know, I mean, we've not done a load of investigations, you know, put our hands up, but over the last, you know, over my time, I've watched enough documentaries and clips to know, and you know, you think that just doesn't happen. You can sit for hours and not even get so much as a breeze.
Exactly.
You know, whatever.
Exactly. And this is the problem that programs like Most Haunted and Ghost Adventures, they have given Joe Public totally the wrong idea on what a paranormal investigation is. They are under the impression that you go into these haunted houses and there's plates flying at you and things are coming off the wall every few minutes. The reality of it is you could sit in a really haunted house, or an house that is reputed to be haunted, for 24 hours and not have a single thing happen. And that is the reality of paranormal investigation. There's none of this every few minutes things going on, unless you're really, really lucky or unlucky, depending on what's happening.
Just these ghost shows, I'm not going to name any, but I'm sure people know the ones we're talking about. And you can just tell right away it's a setup, and they've been, you know, there is one in particular that's been exposed so many times, and it's on YouTube. You know, all the wee bits and pieces where they're slipped up, and it sheds a whole bad light on the paranormal, because if you get, this is just my opinion. You know, if you get somebody new that's wanting in.
Scott's froze.
It's because he's got a new PC, so his webcam's playing up something.
Yeah, I had exactly the same problem when I had my new computer. You'll probably find after it's updated a few times, it'll be okay. You just got to wait for Windows, drivers and everything to catch up. But yeah, what he's saying just he's exactly right. You know, it's called paranormal for a reason, and when you're getting it that fast, you've got to doubt what you're seeing. And these TV programs, the other thing you got to bear in mind is they are under pressure to produce something every episode. So if they're not getting anything, they're going to invent it. They're under obligation with their channels and stuff that they have to produce something. So, you've got to keep that in mind. And
sorry about that, my camera cut out.
This is where a lot of new teams fall down, is they can't, or they refuse to distinguish the difference between paranormal investigation and paranormal entertainment, and that's where the problem lies. You've got to check. I've got no problem with paranormal entertainment as long as they admit they are doing paranormal entertainment. The one thing that gets right up my nose is these channels that deliberately know that what they're putting out there isn't real, but they sit there and try and convince everybody it is, and that is a real big no for me.
I'm exactly the same, Brett. As you say, I mean, I'll sit and watch some of them. There's quite a few of them on Amazon Prime, and Sarah will sometimes say to me, what are you watching that for? And I think, well, I want a wee bit of entertainment. And it's totally fake.
Yeah.
But just for whatever reason, you'll still sit down and, watch a half an hour, 40 minutes. Just
I've got no problem with paranormal entertainment whatsoever, but they need to start being a little bit more honest about what's going on, because Joe Public is getting totally the wrong idea of what paranormal investigation really is. Yeah,
that's what I was going to say before I disappeared. You get somebody who's new, want to get into paranormal, and so I'm going to watch some documentaries, I'm going to watch some YouTube. And they get these, they just happen to be unlucky enough to click onto one of these shows, the entertainment ones, and they start thinking, no, you know what? No, it creates a whole blanket over the paranormal community, I think, because then you think, well,
it does. And this is why you'll find paranormal investigation channels where people are genuinely investigating the paranormal, where the paranormal is more important than the channel, that you will grow slower, because these people who watch these entertainment channels, they are so used to having something happen every few seconds, they think, this is boring, nothing's happening. But what they need to realise is what they're seeing is actually genuine paranormal investigation. That is the reality of going out and doing a paranormal investigation. You can sit there for hours and get nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the reality.
I've been different groups and they'll put out videos and what have you. And they're all great groups, all great groups. And they'll go to investigation and they'll be sitting there, and I'll still sit and watch it, even though there's not. They could be sitting in a cemetery and it's pitch black at 2 o'clock in the morning, and there's not a thing happening. But I think all with these things, you also feel that you're part of the investigation with them, because you're sitting there watching it and you're waiting for something to light up, something to make a noise.
There's a lot of Facebook groups out there, and I've got to be honest, I'll go on them to titter and laugh at them. And there will be reams and reams and reams of photos, and it's basically a bush or something, and they've got great big red circles around a couple of leaves. Can you see that devil face staring out? And people just straight away presume it's genuine. Rather than sending it to somebody who knows something about imagery and get them to look at it first, they just put it out there, look at this devil in the bush, and it's just the way the leaves are. They don't even bother to educate themselves on basic things like pareidolia.
Yeah. Well, that one with the plant pot.
Possible.
That one with the plant pot, that's what we were like, when I first looked at it, and I think Sarah looked at it as well, and maybe we've got something there, and you're looking and you're hoping that you've got something, you get that wee, 10-second buzz, well, maybe I've caught something. But then it is, you need somebody who, get their wits about them with photography, and it turns out to be a plant pot.
What you did there is what makes you a paranormal investigator and not a paranormal entertainer. Because the paranormal entertainer would have just slapped that straight on the channel and gone, look at this, we've caught a wizard. You took the time to take it to somebody who knew what they were talking about to check it. And that is the difference between paranormal investigation and paranormal entertainment. That is
Thank
a perfect example of the difference.
See, we always get our photos cross-checked,
Mm-hmm.
and then if we think, I think there's two on our Facebook, Scott, that could be.
Yeah.
Some folk have looked at them and said, no, it's just, you know, like the way you're looking at it, it's different lights and stuff. And then other folk have looked at the same picture and thought, right, okay, maybe there is something there.
Yeah.
So that's why we always kind of double check them.
Yeah, but the thing is, as long as you put things on your Facebook and your channel and say, we think it may be, there's no problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's when people put them on and go, this is what it is. And that is when you can tell they're more interested in the entertainment side of it than the actual investigation side of it. They never even bother to ask anybody their opinion on it. They just put it straight out there as paranormal evidence.
You see, I totally agree with you, Brett. You do need to, you can't just say, you know, we caught this and we caught, I mean, that catch we got in our home, Sarah put it up on YouTube, and I think she's put, you know, look what we captured or something, look what we saw. And that's it, you know, you're leaving it open for interpretation.
Yeah.
You know, some people might come on and say, oh, no, you know, that's no. Yeah. See, with photographs.
You can put his, I believe it's this, and then leave people to make their own minds up. And
you are always going to get, you know, people who have got different opinions. People say, oh, no, that's.
You know, but the nature of pareidolia itself, you could show 10 people the same picture, and those 10 people would see 10 different things. Mm-hmm. That's just the nature of pareidolia.
Well, with that plant pot photograph, you know, no disrespect to anybody else's comment, you know, we liked all the comments. People were putting different things. You know, I see an old grey man in a top hat, and you know, I definitely see an old man. I see a lizard. You know, so there was quite a varied opinion on the actual photograph. You see, once the guy took it and ripped it apart and says, "Look, listen, mate, this is what you've got." I thought, well, you know, but you know, as you say, people are going to have different opinions. I've done it myself. You know, I've looked at photographs on Facebook and.
Everybody is, even people who are aware of it, are still subject to pareidolia every single day. Even people who are aware of what it is, you'll always be catched out with something. There's no getting away from it. It's part of our psychology.
Yeah,
it's the same with the wee doll picture. I call it the doll picture. It's not a doll. I don't know what it is, but I call it the doll picture. We've had this picture looked at by loads of people. I'm just about to put up, and everybody's got different opinions on it.
I was taken, that's down there at the left hand side of the Mackenzie Tomb and Greyfriars.
Right.
That there. And so we're not saying it's paranormal or it's a spirit of it, but we don't have a clue what it is, and you know, people so, you know, I don't know. Well, I think it's
that is the sort of picture you need to get to a photographic expert, and you know, they can tell you one way or the other whether there's something there or not. You know, because I guarantee if you show that to 10 different people, they will give you 10 different answers as to what that is there, without a doubt.
But we've had various answers, but we've never ever come out and say, right, that is a spirit or that is a demon or whatever, because we just wouldn't do that. That's not the way it works.
All you say of that picture is you've caught something on the picture.
Just we've never ever been able to explain what it was. When we went there, there was nothing, as far as we could remember, there was nothing lying in the ground. You know, beside the side of the tomb, it was just stones. So who knows? What's Andy saying? It's fake Photoshop if we didn't watch it change over the course of time.
Andy has got a photograph that is really interesting, and I actually passed it on to a friend, and he did some image analysis of it, and he's convinced that what's on that picture is actually on that picture. I don't know if Andy's ever showed it, but it's a really, really interesting photograph, and Andy says the photograph itself has actually changed over time.
That's the.
I know what picture you're talking about.
What's the picture I'm thinking of?
It's like the sky changed in it.
He's on a boat, and it looks like there's a rays coming down on the picture.
That's it.
I
passed that on to a friend of mine, and he analysed it, and he said what is on that picture is actually on that picture. That hasn't been added. It's actually part of the original picture.
we seen that quite a few weeks ago. But it's been fascinating having you on, Brett.
You're welcome. It's been a nice chat, actually.
It's as I say, it's always good to get different opinions and views, and the comments have all been great. So thanks to everybody that came in and commented.
Return the favour and have you on my channel one of the Fridays if you're free.
Yeah, I just give us a wee mail. I know Sarah's quite interested in chatting to you about the Winchester mansion or Winchester house. Is it called a house or a mansion? Excuse my ignorance.
They actually, Pete, I think it is technically a mansion, but most people know it as the Winchester Mystery House. But it is technically a mansion by the size of it. The thing is absolutely huge.
I don't have.
There are videos online about it where they go inside, and in some places there's actually doors that open, and because the floors aren't all on the same level, the door actually opens onto two separate rooms. It's really strange inside that house. Really strange.
See, when I was researching it, I could have sat here for weeks and.
Oh, you would do with the Winchester place. It's an absolute. You pick probably one of the most biggest paranormal subjects out there. The Mystery House. It's the stuff on it is humongous.
Well, she's doing part 2. I think it's the 5th of October. It's in the diary. We actually, I'd watched the film before with Helen Mirren in it, and after Sarah had done her piece, we watched it again, and all she did all the way through was criticise it.
Yeah.
But she says that's not right.
See, this is the problem when they move into Hollywood. The Amityville House is another fine example of it. Because a lot of what they showed in that, well, pretty much 90% of what they showed in that film never actually happened. It never occurred.
I did a live on Amityville for quite a few weeks ago now, where it was real or fake, and it was amazing the stuff I dug up. Sounds like I'm bragging. I'm not bragging, but I mean, it surprised me. Some of the information, obviously the DeFeos, which was kind of, clean cut. Excuse the phrase, no disrespect to them. But once I started looking into the Lutz's story,
well, what's really interesting about the house is once the Lutz's left, every other family who's lived there, there's been absolutely no paranormal activity in that house at all. Not a thing. And
before the DeFeo, I mean, the house was built in 1924. The DeFeos moved in 1965. So you're talking about 41 years. And in that 41 years, there'd never been anything reported at all. And as you say, after the Lutz's moved out, the families that moved in before it, there was nothing.
There's the picture that we were talking about, Andy's picture.
Yeah, well, my other friend Andy actually recoloured all that for him, and you can actually, and he enhanced it all, and you can actually see that those beams or whatever they are coming down are actually part of the picture. They're not photoshopped over the top. They are genuinely part of the picture.
I remember when I first seen that picture, I took a look kind of quite a few times at it.
To me, it looks like it looks like somebody's cardigan.
That's what I was going to say. See the bit there? I don't know if you can see my wee arrow or not.
There's buttons, and you can even see the cabling of the wall. That looks like there is a giant picture of a person there in a cardigan, to me.
Thanks for coming in, Claire. Take care. Hope to see you again soon. That's why I thought it was something, kind of cardigan your gran would have wore or something.
Yeah. See you soon, Claire.
That's how I pictured it to be.
Yeah. Really interesting photograph, that one.
But what I was saying about Amityville, see, I was quite fascinated after the fields were in the deluxes, and then they lasted 28 days, and then they moved out, and then I started to dig and dig, you know, to what happened in that space of time between the police, and it was actually interesting that the deluxes used Ronnie DeFeo's defence lawyer as a kind of agent.
Yeah. The thing is, if you look into the background of what was going on with the Lutzes and what was said between the Lutzes and their, you know, publishers and, you know, their promoters and stuff, is very, very interesting if you go into the backstory of what went on there. Personally, I think they bought the house and realised they couldn't really afford it and they needed to get out of jail free card to get back out of there. That is what I personally think happened with Amityville.
My mother was never a cardigan. That's what it looked like to me, Andy. I might be wrong. That's just the image art, you know.
Yeah, that's what it looks like to me. It looks like a close up of somebody's cardigan, and you can see the bottom part of the face on it. See you later.
It's been brilliant having you in, Brett, and we'll get you back on.
You're welcome, but I'll definitely message you on Facebook, and you can both come on one of my Friday streams if you want to.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
I'll warn you beforehand, they get a bit chaotic.
That's all right.
And there's one person on there who throws some real curveballs with paranormal questions, so you might find it really interesting, some of the things you're asked.
Well, it's all part of the learning experience, you know. That's how, you know, as I said earlier on, we try and get sort of varied guests on here because everybody's got their own experiences, their own knowledge, and, you know, everything to pass on. And it's amazing just what you can pick up and just sitting talking
definitely.
to.
Definitely. It's like I said at the beginning, it's a never-ending learning experience in the paranormal.
Exactly. So, no, any Friday, just give us a wee mail, and we'll be more than happy to come on.
Brilliant.
So, yeah, no problem at all. And as I say, I think Sarah's going to mail you about the Winchester topic.
Yeah,
that's her puppy. I mean, so thanks very much, everybody, for coming in. We'll be back on tomorrow night at 9 o'clock. And we hope to see you there. So thanks for your comments and taking the time to come in and watch us. And we hope you're all safe and take care. And hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night. And you just stay on the panel just for a couple of minutes, but after we click off, is that all right, buddy? Right, so let's say thanks very much for coming in, and we hope we see you tomorrow night at 9. So be safe.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.